everyone. Welcome to stackconf, and thank you for joining me on my talk, Contributing to Open Source with the example of Icinga. My name is Feu Mourek, my pronouns are they, them, and well, who am I to talk to you about this topic? I work for two companies, one of them being NETWAYS, the organizer of this event, where I am a GitLab trainer. So I do occasional trainings on the topic of Git basics and GitLab basics, which is the version control system that is very often used in open source projects, like for example on GitHub, where there's also Git behind the system. And the other company that I work for is Icinga, who is also sponsoring this event, where I'm in the role of the development advocate, which is basically the in-between the community and the development. So I started out as a trainee to become a developer, and I did. I also worked in the development team for a while, and I slowly shifted over to the more communicative role of the system. So I'm now mostly in charge of doing talks like this one, roaming the community forums, trying to answer questions, make peace, and mediate between the community and our development team. So if there is an event hosted by Icinga, it's probably going to be me sitting there talking to you, alongside with my colleague Blairim, for example, who also did the little sponsoring pitch that you might have seen sometime in the past 2 days. He probably also explained what Icinga is, so I'm just going to go briefly over it. Icinga does monitoring, so it's an open source monitoring software, which encompasses infrastructure monitoring for your data center, monitoring automation, so you don't have to enter everything by hand, cloud monitoring, so you don't just observe your servers that are, or your machines that are standing there, but also what's in the cloud. We provide metrics and logs, so you can properly contextualize your data, analytics that help you analyze what you've got and perform proactively. So look into the future, what might happen, is that hard drive going to go full or not? And the most important part, we also notify the people on call to, help ease the pain of your system. So that is basically what Icinga does. What Icinga is made of is a bunch of official repositories. So different parts of the software being out there on GitHub, open sourced. So there are two core repositories, as I would call them, which is Icinga 2 and Icinga Web 2, which together form the basis of everything else, which is different modules and plugins. From our official side, there are a few, but there are even more that are made by the community and maintained by the community. You can find most of those on exchange.icinga.com, which is kind of our hub for everything that the community made and wants to publish. So there is the little core that is managed by us. There are our officially supported modules and plugins, and of course the Icinga stack. But there is so much out there that is made by the community. So we understand ourselves as an open source company. If you're here, you probably know the basic essence of open source already, but it means to us that there's more than just open source code. More than just the people that we see here in the office that are working on Icinga. There are so many people out there that help us thrive and live from your ideas and contributions. So we want to invite you to join in on the fun, to help us out, and I'm just going to go briefly over what you can do if you've never contributed or have contributed already to any kind of open source project, and try to help out, even though you might not be able to code. But being able to code is the thing that comes to mind first, and there are different ways. So what you can do is obviously make change to the repositories. So you could suggest changes or even submit your own code, your own features or bug fixes that you've made. But you could also try to make a difference for other users, for other people that are just trying to work with the product you're trying to support. So, for example, you could post in the forums, or you could write blog posts, write tutorials about the project that you're trying to support, and help other users get into it easier. And you can help the developers out in different ways too, not just by submitting code. You could test software, you could be starting conversations that help give the developers an idea on how you use the software. So contributing takes different forms. It's more than just submitting source code. But since that is the most obvious one, that's how we're going to start off right now. So making changes to the repositories. First of all, I'm going to show you what a repository could be looking like on GitHub. So I'm going to show you here. This is the homepage of Icinga on GitHub, basically. So this is github.com/Icinga, where there's a collection of our different repositories. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on Icinga 2. And here we have our little overview. There's our code that you can see here with a little README that helps you get started with a project. And there are different issues that have been submitted by the community, by our own developers, and that are being processed. There are the pull requests, as they're called, which are submitted code changes that are there to be reviewed before they can join the main code base. And this is basically what you can see and look at in the Icinga 2 project on GitHub. So what you can do is interact with those issues. You can just look through them, see if there's something that you know about, maybe a bug that has been found that you have encountered as well. And you can just click on it and help out by helping reproduce an issue, for example. If you have a very similar setup and a change from that original setup of the poster, you can also inform and say like, hey, yeah, this is what I've got the same way as you have, and the bug still appears for me, so maybe that has something to do with it. So interacting with the issues is the first step. You could also, of course, fork the repository and submit a pull request. So forking is the process of making an own copy of the repository for yourself. This has a lot to do with security concerns, basically. So you can't just submit something to the vendor's code. So instead, you make a copy of the code, make your edits in your own environment, and when you're all done with that, you submit a pull request. So you request from the maintainers of the vendor to pull over your changes. So you make your own thing in your fork, then you finish up what you wanted to do and submit a pull request over to the original repository. And there's going to be a little review process by the developers or the maintainers of the original project. And they might ask you to make some more changes, or they might accept what you've done and merge it into their code base. Every project is different, so you might want to check for contributing guidelines. In the Icinga project, we have a contributing.md, a markdown file, which you can just click and look through what you can do and have to do to contribute to the code, to this repository. There might be other areas where the contributing guidelines for different projects might be hidden. So you can also check their website or check their forums if you want to support a project to see if there are any guidelines that you can follow that might help you through the process of opening up a pull request. So forking and branching, there are a few tips that I want to give you already, and that is fix only one issue per change. So you look through a list of issues. They might even have a good first issue tag on it or something. And then you click on it, you read through it, think, yeah, I can fix that. And make your fix in your own fork. So, and before you submit the pull request, you see another issue that you could do. Resist the urge to just add that to your one pull request and send that one off and make a new one for the new issue, because there might be conflicts in one and not in the other, or one might be just accepted and the other one needs more discussion or something. Try to separate those in a way. So do not put too many changes into one issue. Just leave one thing at a time so it can be looked at clearly, and try to keep it human readable. So choose a meaningful name for your branch, for your pull requests. Try to describe what you're doing in the best way possible, because maintainers receive a bunch of different pull requests and they need to understand what's going on to rate whether it's a good change that they want to include or whether there should be other things done to the pull request before it can be merged into the main code base. And the same, of course, applies for your commits as well. So for every single change you make, you have one commit, and keep it readable. That is the most important part of it. Keep your code readable and also your messages. So there should be one headline that really briefly, best under 80 characters, describes what you did with your change. If you need more space to explain what you did, just make a new line and another one so you have an empty line in between, and then add the description, what you did and why you did it, what it fixed, and have your description in there. And then with another empty line in between, you can add a reference. So if there is an issue, all issues here in GitHub have an issue number, and in that issue number there can be more discussion than just in a commit message. So you add the keyword refs, as in references, and then you add the issue number of your issue, and GitHub will automatically link that issue in the pull request. So the maintainer or the developer that looks through the pull requests can just easily click on it and see why you did what and add more information to it. So try to make it as easy as possible for the people reviewing your changes to actually get a gist of what you did. The best place to get started with that, if you're not as proficient in the language the project is written in, is to start with the documentation. Every documentation will have typos. There is no way around it. Everything a human writes out has typos. So what you can do is to read through the documentation, just note the typos, and then submit a pull request to fix those. You can test the installation process for example. So if there's an installation guide in the documentation, try it with your environment. You might even want to just set up a new environment with a different operating system, an unusual one, and try out if the installation guide still works there, because there are so many environments that projects can be built in. So you can test them all. Something might slip through for the developers. So you can just fix up the documentation, and if there are any structural changes that you've had in mind, it might be best to open an issue or a pull request discussing those as well. So if you think maybe the installation should be above the how to use, you can just open up an issue, describe, hey, maybe we should switch that around, and have that discussion with the people maintaining the project, with the people that are developing for that project. See if they think it's a good idea too, and then you can continue to contribute and maybe make that change yourself. So, as the talk said, on the example of Icinga, for us, the documentation is written in GitHub flavored Markdown, and it's located in the doc. So if we go to Icinga 2, the repository again, and scroll down to the doc here, we can click on it, and there's all of the documentation that we have in separate markdown files. Any changes that you make in here, you can click on a file, click on that little edit button, and it will automatically make a fork for you, and you can edit it in the web interface yourself. So there's no need for setting up an environment or anything as well. And all of that documentation that you see here is rendered in our website as well. So there's icinga.com/learn, so this learn tab. We have our documentation. And if I click on this Icinga 2 docs here, you can see that exactly what we've seen in the markdown file is also rendered here. If you happen to find something here in the docs, maybe you've read through the docs in this rendered version, you can always click here on the View it on GitHub, which will take you directly to the repository that it's about. Okay. So what other options are there? So if you're not proficient in coding, if you don't want to touch the documentation or didn't find anything that you could have changed or touched up, there's always more things you can do. You can make a change for other users. People that also just use the software, use the project that you want to help out. And maybe you could be active in their forums. So every project has a forum or a wiki page that you could be active on. And it's always good to interact with it. Even if you're just asking questions, if you feel like you're burdening people, think about it differently. The issue that you're having right now, that you're asking on the forum, might take a bit of time from the person answering the question, but it's also helping out every other person that has the same issue and searches for it and then finds your question and your answer. So you're helping others by just asking questions. And even answering questions helps you understand the problem better. So everyone's better off with more knowledge than before. You can start discussions as well. So if you see a new feature that was freshly implemented and you have a creative way of using that feature, or if you want to know, hey, how do others do this thing, or how do others tackle this or that problem, you can always ask about it or start a discussion in the forums, and this will give some fire, give some life to the project, and therefore help it out. If you can, and if you feel like you're proficient enough with the software, you can also try to help out others with their problems. Everyone started somewhere, and everyone's asking questions. And maybe you know the answer to some and help them out. Our forum you can find at community.icinga.com. I will give you a quick overview. So this is what it looks like to a user that is already logged in. So that's me. If you're new, there are going to be some pinned topics here on how to get started in the forum, commonly asked questions, and also a bit on how to contribute. You can look through different categories that we have here and just find something that you think might know something about. So feel free to just hop into a forum and contribute by asking or answering questions. And the last thing I want to talk about is how to help out the developers without actually contributing to the code or editing the repositories directly. And that first point, testing software, is important. And even though pretty much everyone tests their software in some way, and we have pretty good test coverage for our repositories, there might always be something new that slips through. Nothing's perfect, no testing is perfect. So if you find a bug, if you find something that you think is going wrong or not working as intended, it's always cool to tell the developers about it. So check out new versions, better versions, some releases that you found. You don't have to run them on your live environment. You can just set up a little development testing environment for yourself and check out new features and just see if you find something and then write up a GitHub issue, for example. Or if you think there are security issues, you can contact most any project on their own website. There's probably going to be a separate thing for security issues that you think you might have found to, you know, not open up publicly about security issues. And they will probably be very thankful for any kind of bug report that you are bringing up. But even better than just any bug report is writing a good bug report. So you should probably try to get to know how to do that. So what we have in our repositories here is issue templates that help you structure your bug report. So if I click on new issue here in our repository issues, there are going to be 3 different things suggested. One is report a bug, request a feature, and there's also a point that says ask a question where it directs you to the forum. But let's say you want to report a bug, you can click on get started and it will give you a nice little template for it. And this template doesn't only help, or doesn't only apply to Icinga, but also to other projects that you could use it for. So you should start off with describing the bug. So give a description of what you think is going wrong. Try to look for troubleshooting guidelines first. So we have a documentation chapter about that, but there might be other troubleshooting guides for other projects that you could find on their websites or in their Git repository. And if you don't find the issue that you have in the troubleshooting guides, try to describe how to reproduce the bug that you found. So what steps did lead to the bug showing up? Was it just clicking around in the web interface and it suddenly comes up? Or can you figure out how to effectively reproduce the bug every single time it appears? This might help the developers a lot, and try to note every single step you took to get to experiencing the bug. Try to describe what the expected behavior was. So look at what you think should happen. I mean, sometimes behavior that looks like a bug might be intended, but oftentimes it's not. And you should describe what you think could happen or should happen so the developers can better gauge whether you're just misinterpreting a feature maybe, or whether it's actually a discrepancy. Add screenshots. Screenshots are always great because it helps assure that what you're saying is factually correct as well. So if someone can submit a screenshot, there might be details in it that the person overlooked in the first place and they just didn't think of mentioning, and the developer can maybe see more in it. And of course, describe your environment as detailed as possible. So in our case, describe the Icinga 2 version, describe the operating system you're using, maybe the browser if you're in the web, enabled features, web versions. Just try to include everything that you think might relate to the problem, and also some things that might not relate to the problem. And if you've got any logs that describe what happens or that popped up around the time, maybe just include those as well. It's a lot easier to just filter out things that you don't need instead of asking for it. So if someone reports a bug that is just 3 sentences, hey, yo, this is broken, help me fix it, the developer has to ask 1,000 questions, which are a lot of effort to put into a bug that you don't even know whether it's actually a bug or not. If you start off with saying, like, stating a lot of different facts and just oversharing information, it's a lot easier to just ignore the things that you don't need. So include anything and everything, additional context, anything that relates to the bug, just throw it out there. It's easier to ignore stuff that you don't need than to ask for stuff that you do need all the time. So you've written your good bug report and you've made the project a better one by letting the developers know. If you've got any other ideas on how to contribute, please feel free to discuss it with me. And there's probably going to be a chat. So in the chat, you can reach out via icinga.com, on Twitter, on GitHub, and on Facebook, all under the name Icinga. Or you can just come and join me in the community forum, community.icinga.com. And thank you so much for listening. Please contribute to an open source project, preferably Icinga, but any project is a good project if you commit to it. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day. See you in the comments.